Hey, hi, hello, good evening. I welcome you to another very beautiful edition of AZ900 Dinner Time series. So we've done so well. We've gone through module 1 together, we've gone to module 2 together, and this is module 3. Okay, module 3 and day 3. So fasten your seatbelts as we look into what today has for us. So today we're going to be looking at module 3, Azure Core Management Tools. So for core management tools, we'll look at things like IoT to up to Azure Service Health. Okay, so all the important things you need to carry out your duties with regards to Azure, they are what we're going to talk about in this chapter. So this chapter is extremely important and I need your full attention. So yes, let's go right in. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to be talking about is Internet of Things. What is Internet of Things? So Internet of Things is the ability of devices to garner and relay information for data analysis. Okay, so when you're talking about Internet of Things with regards to Azure, you need to look at three very, very important components. Okay, the first one is IoT Central. What is IoT Central? I'm sure that we've talked about what a managed service is in module 1. So IoT Central is a fully managed global IoT software as a service solution that makes it easy for you to collect, gather, and monitor IoT devices at scale. So if you have IoT devices, you need a solution to be able to have them in one place, to be able to manage them. So IoT Central is that device, is that component of Azure that will help you do all that management. Okay, another very important aspect of this that we're going to look at is IoT Hub. What is IoT Hub, by the way? IoT Hub is a managed service hosted in the cloud. It acts as a central messaging hub for bidirectional communications. So if you have devices you're using IoT for, then you have a place where the IoT messages are entering. So you need somewhere where there's communication between the devices you are monitoring and IoT applications in the cloud. So IoT Hub is that device. Okay, now the final one, IoT Sphere. What is IoT Sphere? I'd like you to think about it this way. Okay, anytime you hear IoT Sphere, I'd like you to think about security. So IoT Sphere is a secured high-level application platform with built-in communication and security features. I'd like you to underline that word, security features for internet-connected devices. Also, I want you to look at internet connected devices. So when you have internet connected devices, you want them to be fully secured. IoT Sphere is your guy. Okay, so let's push forward. Okay, so at this very point, we're going to be looking at a walkthrough. Okay, the walkthrough says that we should create an IoT hub in Azure, we should add an IoT device to it, and we should test this device using a Raspberry Pi simulator. By the way, a Raspberry Pi is a little computer just the size of your hand, or the size of your palm. So let's go to Azure portal quickly. Where's my browser? Okay, my browser is here. So this is Azure portal. So like I told you from our previous days, from our previous modules, okay, if you want to do anything, two ways: you either search for it. Okay, so the one, when you search, the one that is grayed out is usually the solution. Or go to the hamburger icon on the left and do a search. But we're just quickly going to click on this and see what it has for us. Okay, so I've already created one. In case we're having network issues, I'll just use that one. But I'd like us to go through the walkthrough together. So I'm going to create a new one. Okay, so I'm going to create a new one. I don't know how long it's going to take, but hopefully the network will be kind to us. So it's pretty fast. So I'm going to use this resource group. I'm just going to call it Dina IoT. Dina IoT. Okay, so it's straightforward. We're not required to enter. Okay, so these ones I will just leave everything. I just leave it to the defaults. Okay. Okay, so we're reviewing and validating. So let's give it a few minutes. Okay, so we are ready to create. So one thing I'd like you to do when you're studying for your exams, it's a good practice to go along with the walkthrough. I think that one thing that would differentiate you and make you not to use the other way people usually use, I don't want to mention the name, to pass the exams, is to actually go try to do the walkthrough. If you do the walkthrough, you will really understand the concept. So Azure has free trial credits. So I'd like you to take advantage of the free trial credit. Just put in Google Azure free trial credits and sign up for 30 days. So that you can be able to test out these concepts that we are going through together. Okay. So let's just wait for the deployment to complete. So as you can see from the screen, the deployment is already complete. So we're just going to go into the resource, which is the IoT hub that we created. So if you look on the left hand side, there's this section called device management. So I'd like you to just quickly click on devices. But before we click on it, I'd like you to take note of something. Okay, so messages we use today are 0. IoT device connected is 0. So the account is fresh. No message has been sent, but all that is going to change after we connect to our Raspberry Pi. So I've already opened the Raspberry Pi simulator in another window. So later on, we're going to be coming back to this, and we're going to be paying particular attention to line 15. Okay, so line 15 says connection string. So we're supposed to get our connection string from the IoT device, which we're going to create now and place it in line 15. So here in line 15, we have a placeholder that is asking for our IoT hub device connection string. So I'm just quickly I'm just quickly going to go ahead and click and create an IoT device. Okay, so fasten your seatbelt, and if you have your Azure account, please follow along so that the concepts can stick better. So as you can see, it has opened. It says we should add our device. So I'm just going to click on add device and wait for it to open. So we can give it any name. I'm going to call it Raspberry. Okay, no, Berry Pi. Okay, I'm just going to call it Raspberry Pi, and I'll leave everything with the default. I'm just going to click save and wait for a few minutes for the device to be fully created. Okay, so as you can see from the screen, our IoT device has been created. So I'm just going to click on it. Remember, I showed you the IoT hub, no, the Raspberry Pi simulator, which is, and line 15 is saying we should get our connection string. So I'm gonna open this. I'm opening the device, and I'm gonna, okay, so connection string, we'll go with the primary one. Let's just view what it is. Okay, so look at the primary connection string. So I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. I'm going to bring it to line 15. Okay, so bring it to line 15. We're going to remove the placeholder. I'm removing the placeholder. I'm just going to paste the connection string. No, we need line 15, not 14. Okay, so I'm going to go back. So when you paste in, make sure you're not pasting on a different line. If you do that, you're going to have error. So we can see that our connection string has been rightly pasted to line 15. Okay, so I'm just going to click on run and see. So at this very minute, you see that everything is in the default state. There's no messages has been processed yet, but that is going to change when, okay, so let's take a look. It has started sending messages to IoT Hub. Okay, so we're going to go back to IoT Hub and see the messages that the Raspberry Pi has sent to it. So we're going to look at the overview page and see if it's showing any difference. Okay, so let's look at the overview page. Okay, as you can see, it's so fast. 3 messages. Remember earlier I opened this same page for you and it was 0 message. Okay, 0 message. but at this point I sent 3 messages already. So before our next lab, we're still going to look at it and see how many messages this Raspberry Pi have sent to IoT Hub. So remember what the definition is. It's a place for bidirectional communication between the device you're connecting and your IoT devices. So this is the IoT device we created. We call it Raspberry Pi, and the other device, which is the Raspberry Pi simulator. So let me refresh and see if the messages have increased. As you can see, 33 message. Okay, so let's, at this very point, we are done with, we have fulfilled the requirements for this particular walkthrough. So let's quickly move on and see what what other things that we have to do. So we created the IoT Hub in Azure portal. We added an IoT device. Okay, we tested that device using the connection string in we tested the device and we saw that it sent messages. So let's quickly move ahead so we can finish everything in a timely manner. Okay, so now guys, I'd like you to pay close attention to this. Okay, so IoT is also Azure is also very big, okay, with big data and analytics. It has not left anything undone. Okay, so because every other cloud provider, they always make available solutions for your big data analysis, okay, and analytics. Okay, so for Azure, whenever you want to do cloud-based enterprise data warehouse, they have a solution for it. It's Azure Synapse Analytics. So anytime you hear the word Azure Synapse Analytics, just know that Azure is just know that they're referring to the big data analytics data warehouse solution for that is available in Azure. Okay, so now, not only that, there are some customers that would always want to prefer open source tools. Okay, so if you prefer that for your big data solutions, you want to use an open source tool, there's Azure HD Insight for you. Now, I've been in situations where we run Apache Spark workload. So if it's Apache Spark workload that you have, Azure, it's not leaving you naked. You have something to use in Azure, which is Azure Databricks. So let's move on. So what I would like you to do is know the differences between each one of them. Know that Azure Databricks is for Spark. Know that HD Insight is the open source analytics service for enterprises. Know that for data warehousing is Synapse Analytics. So if you know the differences between the three at this very stage, you should be all right. So let's move on. Okay, so now we also Azure also is very interested in helping you scale or in helping you push your machine learning workload. So we have Azure Machine Learning to help you train, develop, and deploy your machine learning models. Okay, so now the next one, cognitive services. Assuming you have apps that desire to see, okay, they want to understand what they're looking at. Okay, you program them in such a way, okay, and you want them to be able to see and recognize what they're saying. You want them to be able to interact by speaking with whoever is using them. You want them to hear and understand and interpret a user's need. Okay, so you need to use Azure Cognitive Services. So I'd like you to quickly take note that if your apps, you need your app to see, hear, speak, understand, and interpret the user's need, what you need to use Azure Cognitive Service. I think that this might come out in your exam, so you might meet this because it's a very common question that you would usually be asked. Okay, that if you have an application that needs this, what service should you use for it? So I'm also sure that you've come into situations where you need to communicate with a company at odd hours of the day, probably after closing hours, and someone is still attending to you. Especially this is a very common thing on Facebook. So you should realize that you're not speaking with a real human being, you're speaking with a bot. So in Azure, there's Azure Bot Service that can help you develop intelligent, enterprise-grade bots. Okay, so let's move ahead. Okay, so with Azure has not left serverless computing unturned. If you want to do serverless computing, there is something for you. Okay, so there is Azure Function and Azure Logic Apps. So the differences between the two, just know that Azure Function is event-based. Okay, so event-based code is running your service, and you don't have to worry about any underlying infrastructure. But know that. If you want to automate, orchestrate your business processes and your workflow to integrate with your applications, what you need to use is Azure Logic Apps. And all these are serverless offerings that Azure has provided for you. Okay, so let's quickly move on. Oh, okay, so beautiful. So at this point, we're going to take a look at the Azure portal again, and we're going to try and create an Azure function, and we're going to use HTTP to trigger and test it. So let's go back to Azure portal. Okay, so remember I promised you earlier that before we take our next walkthrough, I'm going to refresh this and see how many messages that it has sent. So before I left, it was 33 messages. Let me refresh this so that you see how beautiful. Oh, you can see it has already recognized that we connected one device. So this happened because we used the connection string, and so far it has sent 104 messages. So it can send up to 400,000 in a day. So that is a lot. So everything happening in that device. So assuming that you connected a sensor, okay, for example, to a car, and you want the sensor images to be sent to IoT Hub, is the same thing, that is the same process that is going to go through as well. So let's quickly, I'm going to delete this immediately after the whole lab. So let's quickly go back to the business of the day. So now what we're doing is function. So I'm going to click on function app. I'm going to create a function. I'm going to call it dinner function. Okay, so I'm just going to keep everything as dinner. Okay, it's random though, it does not have to be dinner, but remember the names have to be globally unique. So oh, is this, someone has taken it, so I'm just going to add arrow at the back. Okay, so it's random, you can use anything you want to use. So for the runtime stack, I'm going to choose .NET. I'm going to stick with the default version, stick with the okay, so consumption plan is the default plan here. There are other types, a function premium and app service premium. Okay, so let's quickly scroll, let's quickly continue. So if you're doing AZ204, you're going to go deeper into this. You're going to understand what an isolated plan is, what an app function plan is, and the fact that consumption plan is the default plan, and all that and all that. So let's create. Okay, so this is taking quite a while, but let's just wait for it. So we finished with this, so I'm going to just stop it. Okay, so we are finished with it. Okay, so deployment is in progress, so let's wait for it. So as you can see from the screen, the deployment has completed. So we're just going to go into the resource and continue what we're supposed to do. Okay, so let's go to click on functions. So we are asked to create an HTTP triggered function and test it. So usually I would use Visual Studio. I'll create an application. I will publish it. To Azure, and so long as I've created a function app, it will come and rest here. But since we're not creating an application and we're just doing for testing purposes, so I believe that we can use some sample code. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to click on this. So it's taking quite some time, but just be patient. Okay, so remember that we are testing, so we're developing in the portal. Okay, so the instruction says we should use a HTTP trigger, so we're going to scroll down. Okay, so we're just gonna create. So for the triggers, we have other types of trigger, but for the purpose of this demonstration, we're just using HTTP. So to make you understand what we were supposed to do, I'm going to click on the code. I can directly get my function URL, but let me click on the code so that you understand what we are trying to do. No, what is inside the code. So I'm going to click on the code. So let's see what's inside it. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, the code has opened and it's giving us a debugger so that we can actually view if anything goes wrong. But let's scroll down a little bit. Okay, so this is this line shows you what really happens if the code runs. So what you're required to do, you're supposed to put your name. When you put your name, okay, put your name in key value pair format, like name is equal to Raphael. Okay, and when you put your name, it's supposed to send you a message and say, hello Raphael, this HTTP trigger executed successfully. So that I just opened this so that you see what the code that we're gonna work with is supposed to do. But let me just get the function URL. Okay, so this is the function URL. So I clicked on the get function URL. So I'm gonna copy, I'm gonna put it in the browser so that you can see. Okay, so you can see so you see the double equal to, so I'm gonna put and name, okay, is equals to Raphael. So my name is Raphael. So that's what the code that I showed you just now said we should do. It said we should put name. When we put our name, it will tell us welcome. Hello. This code ran successfully. So that's what I just did. Remember that the this sign here has to be after the double equal. It's called ampersand. Okay, so let's enter. Let's see. Yes, it has executed successfully. Say, hello, Raphael. This HTTP trigger executed successfully. So at this point, we have successfully fulfilled the requirements for this particular walkthrough. So we're going to go back to our slide and see what other interesting surprises that Model 3 has for us. Oh, the next thing we're talking about is Azure DevOps. So if you're from the Azure community, I'm sure that anytime this is discussed, anytime DevOps is mentioned in the group discussion, people get excited. Okay, so so let's take a look at what Azure DevOps is. So Azure DevOps has some tools that include a pipeline, Kanban board, and automated cloud load testing. It has cloud load testing abilities. Okay, so now we also see GitHub. So at this point, what I'd like you to know is the differences between each one of them and what each one of them can do. Because in your exam, they'll ask you, what is Azure DevOps? So, it includes collaboration tools that include pipeline, Kanban board, automated cloud load testing. Okay, so now the next thing, what is GitHub? GitHub is a software development hosting with version control. It has open source management and bug/task management tools inside it. So if you know the differences, I think that at this level you'll be okay. So I'd like you to know that both tools belong to Microsoft. So some few years back, I think 2018, Microsoft bought GitHub. Okay, so and at this point, Azure DevOps has really become a very matured CI/CD and DevOps tool. So let's proceed. GitHub Actions for Azure helps you to automate software workflow so that you can build, test, and deploy from within GitHub. So you can do all the cool stuff from within GitHub using GitHub Actions for GitHub Actions for Azure. So the next one is Azure Dev Test Lab. Okay, just know that anytime you hear that word, there are a set of tools that Microsoft has made for you so that you can quickly create environments in Azure so that you don't waste time, so that you can control costs. So everything has been pre-configured. You just need to put some few parameters and you can deploy, do what you want to do, stop it, deallocate, and move ahead. So let's proceed. Okay, so we've come to another very important section of the study is Azure Management Tools. So let's see what Azure Management Tools has for us. Here we'll be talking about the portal, CLI, up to Azure Service Health. Okay, so now the management tools that you have in Azure. Okay, so I'm sure that you've seen Azure Resource Manager that we talked about, I think in Module 2, that we said that it helps you manage the resources you have in your subscription. Okay, so you can see that the arrow is pointing from portal, PowerShell, mobile app, CLI into it. So these are the tools, management tools, things that you can work with, to things that you can use to create your solutions in Azure. Okay, so we're going to be doing some labs. We're going to be working with a few of them, and you see how they work in real time. So let's proceed. So at this very point, we're going to work on another walkthrough. It said we should create a virtual machine with an ARM template. We should use, if you look at it very well, it said we should use a quick start gallery to deploy a template that creates a virtual machine. What I like about this one, I can even create a virtual machine in less than 3 minutes. So I'm going to time myself. This is interesting. I'm going to look at my watch. Okay, I've put my watch. I'm looking at it. So I'm going to open Azure Portal. So we're going to time ourselves. This is Azure. Okay, Azure Portal. Let me close this. We're finished with this. Guys, it's good practice to delete after working on anything in Azure. So I'm going to delete this after the lecture. So what we do, okay, let me focus on this. So we're gonna deploy a custom template. Okay, so this is where quick start template is. Yeah, so that's the instruction. So I'm gonna open it. So I've started timing myself. Oops, is not loaded yet. Okay, let it load. So I've started counting the time. Let's see how many minutes we're gonna use to create a virtual machine. So this is 1 minute. No, yeah, 1 minute is not complete yet. So resource group. Take one. Okay, so I'm just required to put my name. So Azure user. Okay, so I'm gonna leave the username default. So yeah, let's wait. So I think 40 seconds is passed. Let's see. Oh, okay, so we're counting. For fun, we just want. Oh, what happened? Validation failed. Okay, so if not these validation issues, okay, my password is too short. Okay, if not this validation issue, I'm sure that, okay, so, okay, let me see, P, 1, 2, 3, start. Okay, so, I've changed the password. Okay, so 1 minute and few seconds, okay? So if not that issue, I'm sure that we would have. So already it's like 1 minute and 15 seconds. Okay, even though we had some little issues. So it's trying to create. So let's see. It's about 2 minutes. Okay, 2 minutes is deploying. 2 minutes complete. So let's see what happens. Okay, let's see. Okay, 2 minutes 30 seconds. Okay, 2 minutes 30 seconds. Okay, everything is set. Let's see how many minutes it takes to create a virtual machine with quick start template. So remember that all I needed to do was to add my username and password. So even with the little error, you can see that it's still very fast. Okay, so this is actually 3 minutes, but because we had some little issues. Okay, so the password was not long enough. So let's see. See, in exactly 3 minutes, 15 seconds, we were able to create a virtual machine. Okay, so it would, since a quick start template, it would take it and keep it in your resource group. So we're able to create a virtual machine with quick start template. That is super fast. Okay, super fast, judging by the fact that, really super fast. Okay, so at this point I believe that will fulfill the requirement for, if you want to connect to it, you can see we can SSH, we can RDP. Yeah, usually Windows VM you RDP. Okay, so RDP, but we're not doing any RDP, so let's move ahead. Let's work on other things in the exercise. So let's look at, so at this point we have fulfilled the requirements of that particular this particular walkthrough. So let's move quickly ahead and see what of that is. Okay, so we have another big one. So we're required to create a virtual machine with PowerShell. Okay, so for this one, in order for us not to waste time, I kind of wrote the script somewhere, so I'm just going to pull that up so that we can move on fast. I wrote some PowerShell commands, so if you you can take a look at them and practice them so that you get used to the idea, so you don't have to struggle. Okay, but working with Azure is simple. So if we're going to work with PowerShell, let's use Cloud Shell. Okay, so look at Cloud Shell. Okay, on the right hand side, just click until you see Cloud Shell. So it's gonna pop up. It's popping up. Let's wait for it. Okay, so we're asked to use PowerShell. So I'm gonna switch this to PowerShell. Switch to PowerShell. There will be some instances where you'll be required to add a storage account. So if you're asked to add the storage account, so just click on Advanced, put a name for put a name and proceed. So I'm just going to pull this up, so so that we can see clearly. I'm going to clear the screen so that we can have more space. Okay, so PowerShell command. Okay, so I didn't copy. Okay, so these are function app we're supposed to actually okay, so let's copy the script. Well, I didn't copy it very well, so copy and paste. Okay, good. So everything is well. So I'd like you to take if you're going to take a screenshot of this, please take a screenshot and take note of all I used. So the word new AZVM, okay, the system will know that you want to create a new virtual machine. So when you say new AZVM, you need to add some certain parameters that a virtual machine would typically have. You need a resource group. You need the name of the VM, which is, I call it your VM PowerShell PS. Okay, added a location, added a VNet, a subnet name, security group, and all that. So it's asking for my username, so I'm going to use Azure user. That's what Microsoft like using anyways. So for password, this password 123 start. This is also what Microsoft likes using. So let's just go with the default. So it's creating at the moment. So you see how easy it was for us to create a virtual machine in PowerShell. So I'd like you to take note of the commands. Okay, when creating a virtual machine with PowerShell, the first word that lets the system know that you're creating a virtual machine is new -AZVM. So take note of how it is here, and let's see how it goes. Okay, voila, this is so beautiful, this is so fast. A virtual machine is created. You can see from the screen, provisioning state says succeeded. So I'm going to do something else, something very interesting, and I'm not just going to rely on what it showed to us saying provisioning state is succeeded. So I'm going to use another command so that it would show us on the screen, so that you can have confidence, your mind can be at rest that we really created. Voila, can you see it showed us the public IP address, the VM is running, the resource group, and the location. Everything is showing. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, so let's see if this will show us anything. Okay, so at this point, we have fulfilled the requirement for the PowerShell exercise. So I'm going to switch it to Bash, and we'll do the CLI one. and see. Remember what I told you, the command to take note of is new -azvm, but for CLI azvm create. I think when I was learning those days, my trainer then, or my mentor, he made me like hum this like so many times, azvm create, and so I think that you should take note of the command, write them somewhere. I believe that if you take note of the commands, write them somewhere, if you can make your brain to get used to it, write it multiple times, I believe that it will stick. Okay, so you just need to know the format for creating with PowerShell, the format for creating with CLI, and the extra things that you need to add for it to go through. So this is a little bit different, because for this we added the username and the password, so it's just going to go straight to create. So let's wait for it. Let's wait for it to run and show us some beautiful things. Okay, so it's, as you can see from the screen, it's running and it's beautiful. Okay, it's beautiful. Okay, so just know that you need to always add the name of the resource that you're creating. We did that for PowerShell. We added the name. You need to add the resource group. Okay, so you need to indicate the image it's going to use. If it's a Windows VM, that you're creating, the image has to be Windows. Okay, the location is very important. The the size and the admin username. As you can see from the screen, it created very fast, unlike the other one. So provisioning state says VM is running, but let's still, for the benefit of doubt, let me still copy that command and show to you that it is running. Okay. Voila. So at this very point, we have fulfilled the requirements for the two we created with quick start template, we created with PowerShell, and now we've created a virtual machine with CLI. So I don't want you to ever think that this is difficult. This is not difficult. All you just need to know is the very first command, azvm create. Then take note of all the parameters that we are adding, but take note that the backslash would not be on the last one, on the last command. Okay, so it's the last one will not have it. Second to the last, it stops with the second to the last one. So I'd like you to write this somewhere. Like I said, I'm just repeating myself. If you can write it multiple times, trick your brain to get used to it, you will never have problems with these things anymore. So let's just proceed and continue with our one thing that we missed. We're going to check it out. So the exercise says that we should review Azure. Okay, so we missed one thing. We use PowerShell to create a resource group. Okay, so I've already created a resource group before now, so I used the one that I created. But we're going to check on Azure Advisor anyway, so we're not going to skip that out. So I'm going to go back to the PowerShell and check Azure Advisor. So remember what I said, when you're searching for something, you either need to put the name here or come to the hamburger icon and search for it. I'm just going to scroll through. I'm just going to scroll through till I see Azure Advisor. So this is Azure Advisor here. So let's see what it's going to tell us. Okay. And meanwhile, I think that after this, the next couple of lessons will be talking about this as well. So you see that we have a score of 83. So if your score is less than 50, it means that there is something that you're not doing. Okay, something that you're supposed to do that you are not doing. Okay, so it will give you suggestions based on your cost, security. It will give you advice based on best practices. It will focus on cost, security, reliability, operational excellence, and performance. Guys, here is my advice for you. I think that you should, if you work with the portal, you will do less memorization. So I'd always encourage you to make sure that you work with Azure portal at all time. So let's look at the security advice that is given. So it says that virtual machines should encrypt this, blah, 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 blah. Okay, thank you very much. So I think at this point we've fulfilled the requirements. We've looked at Azure Portal, we've looked at the advisor score, we've clicked on some other things. So let's take a look and move on for let's take a look at what we have next and move forward. Okay. So I think we did this. Okay, we did this. We created using CLI. Okay. So Azure Advisor is just what we looked at some few minutes ago. So Advisor analyzes your deployed resources and make recommendations based on best practices. So it says that I have 83%, means that I've been following the best practices, okay? So it means that I have some little flaws. But I'm sure that it gave us 21 recommendations based on security. If I take those recommendations, I believe that my score will come to 100. Okay, so it will give you recommendations on performance, your cost, and operational excellence. So let's move on and see what other things that we can that this module has for us. Okay, Azure Monitor. This one is yeah, I like this one a lot because I've used it to let's read. I've used it to monitor my workload both on premise and in the cloud. So it's actually very, very useful. So nowadays you see a lot of open source tools used for monitoring, but you can actually do a lot of things with Azure Advisor. So how would you use it for your workload on premise? So you can do that by installing an agent on those virtual machines that are on premise. So it will send telemetry from your on-premise network to Azure Monitor. Remember that what we said about networking yesterday, you can take advantage of those, and you see that you'll be able to get traffic from your on-premise environment to Azure platform and connect to Azure Monitor. So the critical components of Azure Monitor, we see it has application insights, log analytics, smart alerts, automation actions, and customized dashboards. So let's move ahead. One key thing I'd like you to take note of before we leave this page, you can use, it can act on telemetry from your cloud and on-premise environment. Okay, so you might meet this in the exam. They will ask you what, you can use it for both your cloud and on-premise environment. So let's move on and see Azure Service Health. Okay, so Azure Service Health is actually very important because it will check the impact of Azure services and give you personalized guidance, support, and notification with regards to where your workload is stored, is being deployed to. Okay, so if the region that you're using, it will tell you what is happening to that place, how it affects your workload, and it will give you personalized advice so you know what to do. Okay, so it provides a personalized view of health services in the region that you're using. Okay, so it will tell you what is happening to if there's outage. Remember, we talked a lot about outages yesterday. Okay, we talked about outage. We said that because the data center needs to have internet, needs to have light 24 hours, it needs to have cooling. So life happens, things happen. So in case there is an unforeseen outage, but meanwhile, remember that's why we have availability zones. That's why we have region pair. So if something happens to one particular region or one particular data center where your workload is hosted, you still have the benefits of that 3 replications, to still get what you want to do. But know that if in case anyone is having any issue, they will send you this kind of personalized messages. They'll tell you about the maintenance and other advice that you need to know with regards to your workload. So let's move ahead. Azure Resource Manager templates. Okay, so I'm sure that you've heard of Terraform, you've heard of infrastructure as code. Okay, so in Azure, this is Azure's own solution to Terraform or infrastructure as code. So Azure Resource Manager template are just JavaScript, JSON files that can be used to create, deploy Azure infrastructure without you having to write any single code. Okay, so the properties they have, they are declarative. Declarative means that if you write that I want 3 virtual machines to be declared in your template, is 3 virtual machines that will be declared. Okay, you can use the results repeatedly, because what this means is that, assuming you have you are the main infrastructure guy, you have like 6 different offices. Okay, are you supposed to deploy here, 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 here? Okay, you can use the template to deploy from one place. You see that it works. You can use that same template to make the same deployment in the other offices. Okay, so you have orchestration. The files are modular. It has built-in validation, and the codes are exportable. Okay, so if you're doing AZ204, you see this. It goes really in depth. Okay, so I believe that the community is going to be taking AZ204 series. So let's please, yeah, you definitely get a deeper explanation on these things. So yes, we are done with today's lecture, but before I go off, I'd like you to answer some very few questions. So how is Azure Advisor different from Azure Service Health? So if you're a little bit confused, if you don't still know what these two are, I'd like you to pause the video, go back, see what Azure Advisor is, take a look at when I checked the lab and saw that, okay, I don't want to give you the answer, but yeah, pause the video, take a look and see what happens. So how does quick start template differ from other methods of spinning up a virtual machine? Okay, yeah. So what do you understand by Azure DevOps? Okay, what type of environment does Azure Monitor work with? Thank you very much. Hope to see you tomorrow during dinner for the next lesson. Thank you. Bye-bye for now.